the U.S. doesn't take money from Israel. Israel takes money from America.
Yes.
Now, yes, in the past, the U.S. did support Chiang Kai-shek on Taiwan, and then Joe Biden did pass that like military support bill. But generally, it's not the U.S. that gives money to people in Taiwan. It's Taiwan taxpayers spending billions every year to purchase overpriced and outdated weapons from the U.S. that don't get delivered until years afterwards. There's a difference. We pay a tribute to our suzerain in the U.S. and
it's a protection money to the Godfather.
You can argue that APAC and like all these Israeli lobbyists have great control over the U.S. You cannot make the same argument with Taiwan. In fact, in Taiwan, no major decision over here is made without the AIT, the American Institute in Taiwan's approval. When Chen Shui-bian, the first DPP leader, became leader in 2000, there was this hope among many people in Taiwan. Oh, we got a true son of Taiwan as our so-called president, and he's going to fight for Taiwan's independence. And we Taiwanese are brave, and we're going to fight. We're going to defend ourselves, and all that. A lot of people repeated those slogans because it felt good. That's at the end of the day, that's what it was. They didn't want to. That was the more, rage against the machine feeling, because those were the people that grew up with memories of, white terror and martial law and political repression during the KMT rule. The KMT was against Taiwan separatism back then, but they were also anti-communist. And yeah, so there was, what I'm saying is, it's a huge reckoning back then. That was an attractive message. It was like the rage against the machine thing, whereas like realism back then, like the messages that Li Ao said were more like, oh, we don't want to hear that. Even the saying 忠言逆耳.
So you're saying people are just going with vibes, they voted.
Yes, people were going with vibes. But the thing is, vibes that works until the vibes, the house of cards that prop up those vibes collapse before your eyes beyond reasonable doubt. Then that's when I think most people in the world, one, they go with the flow, and two, they like to learn things the hard way. Or they don't like to learn things the hard way, but they tend to learn things the hard way, because realizing things before they happen and realizing you need to make changes and that you were wrong is not an easy process for a lot of people to go through, in my opinion. For people on the ground in Taiwan, a lot of it came from the Ma Ying-jeou years. Ma Ying-jeou was the leader that preceded Tsai Ing-wen. He was KMT, and he pushed for closer ties with the mainland. He was the first sitting leader of the Taiwan area to meet with the Chinese president, Xi Jinping. And there was a lot of fear-mongering going on, especially after 2014, when something called the Sunflower Movement happened, where people occupied the parliamentary building and they blocked a bill that would have further integrated the economies on the two sides of the strait. And the whole message was the KMT is a puppet of the CPC. If we elect another KMT leader, then we will lose our democracy and we will reunify, and then reunification will happen, and we must not let that happen. So we need to elect Tsai Ing-wen.
Let me ask you about Sunflower Movement, because what you described sounds very similar to what happened in Hong Kong, just slightly less violent, because that Hong Kong protest also started with occupation of the Hong Kong legislature, and in protest against a bill that basically is essentially extradition bill, and the claim they made at the time was the same, that Hong Kong will lose its unique one country two system. China is going to impose its rule on Hong Kong and getting rid of all the Hong Kong uniqueness. By now, I think it should be obvious the 2019 Hong Kong protest is basically a color revolution.
Yeah.
There was a lot of CIA, foreign intelligence agency involved, NED, CIA. Do you think the Sunflower Movement in Taiwan, that's okay? So you think it is a color revolution?
Well, it was a soft color revolution. It wasn't like total regime change or anything like that, but it really altered the political landscape. And we got to remember 2014, before 2019 in Hong Kong, there was also another protest, Occupy Central, in 2014.
Yes.
Right? The umbrella movement.
Yeah.
the umbrella movement, the sunflower movement, and also the Maidan movement in Ukraine all happened in
At
2014.
the
And this
same
was
time. Yeah.
around the same time that Hillary Clinton was pushing for her pivot to Asia strategy. It's a containment, not just against China, I'd say, but also towards Russia or any country that could potentially challenge U.S. hegemony. And I think a huge factor in that was seeing how, China was relatively unscathed by the 2008 financial crisis, which signaled that there is a certain level of sovereignty and independence exercised by China. I think that was a response to that. And the sunflower movement, I mean, it's very glowy. You have these like student leaders that came out from the middle of nowhere, and then that were just like leaders, and all of a sudden portrayed in the media as these like a next generation of heroes and all that. And now they all have like well, some of them, for example, Lin Feifan, he's now in the DPP, pretty high ranking. Right. You also had Freddie Lim. Freddie Lim was not DPP. There was a third party that was born from the sunflower movement that was like, oh, we're center left. We are for Taiwan independence, but we are also against the right wing nature of the DPP. But then when push came to shove, they always voted with the DPP. And it's kind of like their purpose. We call them 侧翼, which is like a wing party, which is it's kind of like how the Squad existed in America, saying like, oh, we're going to push the Democrats left. But then when push came to shove, the opposite happened. Whereas the Squad was part of the Democrats, the New Power Party that Freddie Lim was a part of was nominally an independent party, independent from the DPP. But then Freddie Lim, one of those young activists, later quit the New Power Party and is a part of the DPP now, and he's now the representative of the Taipei's cultural office in, I think,
Wait,
Finland.
is Freddie Lim
Yes.
the heavy metal guy? Is he? Yeah,
that guy.
Oh yeah. He was featured in a lot of the Western press. Like, oh, look at this cool heavy metal guy. And he's a new face of Taiwan, and he got a lot of exposure in English language.
Yeah, and because he's a tough guy, right? Taiwan independence fighter, except he didn't do his military service. Yeah,
right. Of course.
But it's funny how these guys always.
I mean, that's classical politician. I mean, that makes you the perfect politician material.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, that's the context of that. So that was a situation in the 2010s because 2000 to 2008, it was like the first DPP administration. And that's when a lot of the whole revision of the curriculum happened, when a new generation of Taiwanese were brought up to not think of themselves as Chinese. Before then, as much as the KMT and the administration here in Taiwan was anti-communist and anti-Beijing, they still heavily promoted a Chinese identity within Taiwan. And I think by then, Beijing's attitude became, okay, you guys aren't going to come back to the mainland and overthrow us. We're beyond that. What's more important now is we all see ourselves as Chinese and we settle our internal dispute, Chinese people to Chinese people, which is fine until you have this group of people in Taiwan saying, no, we don't want to think of ourselves as Chinese at all. We're a separate country. We're Taiwanese. That to Beijing is a red line, because the attitude before was, the whole Taiwan situation, it's complicated, but as long as it's in the hands of Chinese people, or people who think of themselves as Chinese, even if they're the worst of Chinese people, they're still family. We can deal with it.
Chinese don't kill Chinese, right? 中国人不打中国人. The Chinese don't fight the Chinese. Yeah, that was the slogan.
So I mean, that was the 2010s were an awkward time, and also that was also when the DPP like became woke-washed. Like I think after 2008, because the DPP lost popularity because the previous leader Chen Shui-bian was caught in a corruption scandal, took a lot of money and put them into an offshore bank account in Switzerland. The DPP was kind of at a loss of where we're headed and whatever. So then that's when they really needed a rebranding. And it was during that time Tsai Ing-wen became their chairwoman, and then under her leadership, it was also the Obama years. So it was also like, okay, we want to present ourselves internationally as this forward-thinking, progressive, like woke party that's
LGBT,
for
yeah,
LGBT, women's rights, animal rights. We're anti-nuclear because
anti-nuclear, yeah.
yeah. So it's all of that, and I think for a while it just their strategy was okay. We just make people in Taiwan feel good about being Taiwanese. We'll spend a lot of money to make Western media portray us positively, and we'll feel good about it, and we can be proud. But here's the thing: vibes and feeling proud don't feed mouths, right? At the end of the day, it's the bread and butter issues that matter. Now, when your bread and butter issues are solved, I mean, that stuff kind of works, but politics really matters when you stop thinking about it with your heart and people start thinking about it with their stomachs. And that's kind of this what the situation's become in the past few years. As you know, everywhere in the world there's inflation, there's all these sorts of issues. Now America's making us give up like a huge chunk of TSMC, and like Taiwan's economy is in the large part propped up by TSMC, the
Yeah.
company that fabricates a lot of the chips and the devices that you're watching us on right now. And especially with things like, you know, Ukraine, the Ukraine situation happening, and also looking at the way the US pulled out of Afghanistan after like 20 years, a lot of people on the ground started thinking, wait, is the US really that dependable? Because I mean, in the past, even like 20 years ago, people like Liao were just talking about history. Oh, look at America and Ngo Dinh Diem and Vietnam. Look at how the US toppled this democratically elected country, how it propped up that dictator, how it did this. But to a lot of people in Taiwan, that's like so distant in the past
Yeah.
that it's just like it's unrelatable. But then now you see this stuff going on before our eyes, and then it's like, wait, what has Beijing ever done to us except expect us to refer to ourselves as Chinese and accept our Chinese identities, which we didn't have a problem with for the longest time until like recent decades because of ideological conditioning. And other than that, okay, they give us these very favorable terms of trade. And because of this posturing by Lai Ching-te, the current DPP leader, his whole strategy is he's just going to further double down on his tough on China uh his appearances. What has that resulted in? More military drills over Taiwan, more countries dropping diplomatic ties with Taipei in favor of Beijing. Not that that really matters in my opinion, but it's a bad look for a lot of people. And what have we gained as a result of that? Well, has the US been nicer to us? No, they're like strong arming us with, you know, the TSMC stuff, like the tech transfers, and also when the tariff negotiations, we weren't given like positive treatment. We like to think of ourselves, oh, we're in the same league as South Korea and Japan, but no, we were placed in the same league as like Southeast Asia.
Well, like some people in Taiwan like to think themselves as Israel for United States in East Asia, but I'm like, no way you're gonna compete with
Okay,
Israel, man. Israel
see,
is
I
like the
think,
golden child.
I
Go ahead,
think,
sorry.
people on both sides of that argument, like people who are for that and against that, have one thing wrong, which is they're taking those words seriously, and that's the first mistake. Because number one, the U.S. doesn't take money from Israel. Israel takes money from America.
Yes.
Now, yes, in the past, the U.S. did support Chiang Kai-shek on Taiwan, and then Joe Biden did pass that like military support bill. But generally, it's not the U.S. that gives money to people in Taiwan. It's Taiwan taxpayers spending billions every year to purchase overpriced and outdated weapons from the US that don't get delivered until years afterwards. There's a difference. Um we pay a tribute to our to our suzerain in the US. And
It's a protection money
yeah,
to the
yeah.
Godfather.
You can argue that APAC and like all these Israeli lobbyists have great control over the US. You cannot make the same argument with Taiwan. In fact, in Taiwan, no major decision over here is made without the AIT, the American Institute in Taiwan's approval. It's kind of like Korea during the late Joseon dynasty. No major decision made by the king was passed without the approval of Yuan Shikai. Right? I mean, we can decide little things like, okay, are we going to do the 10,000 new Taiwan dollar tax rebate, things like that. Do we want to have nuclear energy? Do we? Yeah, we can make decisions when it comes to stuff like that. But then bigger, more consequential things, like if a leader in Taiwan was like, okay, we no longer want to purchase weapons from the U.S. We don't care about what you think. I'm going to do my thing with Beijing. You guys can just fuck off. Yeah, something will
Well,
happen to that leader. It might not be, but it could be, some sort of grassroots movement popping out of nowhere with these very charming student leaders with their images carefully curated, leading some sort of totally organic protest and occupation of the legislative building and stuff like that. Stuff like the U.S. can make that sort of stuff happen.
well, no U.S. politician is going to threaten to bomb Tel Aviv, but you do have U.S. politicians say they
Oh
will
yeah,
bomb
yeah, yeah.
TSMC. They will
No, see,
bomb TSMC, so they will leave nothing to China.
the only country that's ever bombed Taiwan was the United States.
Not many people knew about that, but yes, during World War II, because at that time Taiwan was a Japanese colony, so U.S. did carry out bombing of Taiwan.
Yeah, it also sold weapons to Japan when they were fighting China in the first Sino-Japanese War, which led to Taiwan becoming a Japanese colony. So yeah, it's an inappropriate comparison, and I do want to mention, now that we're talking about the military, how a lot of the the shifts in opinion is also a reckoning with the power balance, right? Especially after the September 3rd military parade in Beijing, attended by Putin and Marshal Kim Jong Un. It's like the submarine launched missiles, capable of nuclear capable missiles and all that. That's like the latest weapons, and there's an objective reality to warfare, right? It's not just, okay, yeah, your willpower is one thing, but the willpower in Taiwan, let's face it, it's Taiwan separatists. They like to talk the talk, but if you actually get to understand them, they will they will sell out their parents for like the most minor benefit. They're opportunists like that. They don't die for their beliefs.
I think there's a strategic misalignment between politicians in Washington and politicians in Taipei, because America expect Taiwan to be Ukraine, right? Fighting the Chinese communists to the last Taiwanese. Whereas even the most hardcore Taiwan separatists, they want Americans to come in and to
Yes.
die and bleed for Taiwan independence. So this is not gonna work. This is why I never believe Taiwan will be a Ukraine scenario, because Taiwanese people fundamentally a lot more smarter than this Ukrainian
You can
neo-Nazis.
say people in Taiwan are smarter. You can say we're not as brave as Ukrainians, but either way, I think people in Taiwan, when a gun is put to our head, we'll know what to do. We'll do what's best for survival. It's how the people collectively survived, Japanese colonization and then the KMT's White Terror and all of that. Because okay, everyone brave enough to resist back then, they didn't.
They didn't survive.
Yeah, I mean, I respect the resistant fighters against the Japanese, but they ultimately were not capable of overthrowing the. You don't fight something that you can't win. Let's just say that it's admirable. It can be admirable depending on the cause, but at the end of the day, what led to Japan's defeat? It was the protracted struggle against Japan by the Chinese people, and then also the U.S. involvement in World War II, and all of those factors. It wasn't just a little tiny group of, brave people in Taiwan. It got crushed way too early on, and yeah, I mean, it's looking at these objective realities, we're like, okay, see, I'm just going on YouTube and Instagram right now, and a lot of my algorithms just stuff that people in Taiwan see because of my geolocation and also just the content I consume. Interestingly, I talk about Liao a lot. Just 10 years ago, if I shared or stuff from him or talk about him, people would just be like, "Oh, you're being brainwashed. He is a CPC puppet. He is
But By the way, I'm gonna break it down for my Anglophone audience again, and a lot of Chinese people know who Liao is, but Liao was a prominent Taiwan dissident during the KMT era. He was in prison for his view opposing the military dictatorship. But when he got out of jail, when Taiwan liberalized and democratized, Liao also became a fierce critic of the Taiwan government because especially he's criticizing the leadership under Li Denghui, etc. He sees them leading Taiwan down a separatist path, and so Liao is basically a very famous independent voice. He is always like in opposition to the always speaking truth to power. So
he came to Taiwan when he was 14, right? Because he was born on the mainland. So like he's not really like Taiwanese either, but he lived in Taiwan for decades, right? So he understands Taiwan a lot, but he also, I think because he's not like a Taiwanese, he could look at things going on in Taiwan a little bit more objectively as somebody who's somewhat of an outsider, but also like very integrated into society here. And yeah, like back then he would in the 90s and 2000s he had like slots on TV late night, like talking about whatever he wanted. A lot of it was just live broadcast, him talking to a camera about like random topics. Like back in like 2000, he was calling out Tsai Ing-wen. Like Tsai Ing-wen was like, "Oh, as a scholar, I am Chinese. I am culturally Chinese. But as a politically, as a politician, I am not Chinese. I am Taiwanese." And he was just like, "Can your cultural identity change because of the chair that's underneath your ass?"
For politicians, yes. That is a quality required for a politician.
Yeah, and the thing is, he has so much dirt on both the KMT and DPP that he could say and do all sorts of crazy things, and no one really tries to do anything about it. Like he ran as a independent to become a legislator in Taiwan, and he won. And then one day when they were doing an arms procurement, I mean, he knew he wasn't going to block it, but he wanted to create a spectacle and create, I guess, discourse around the topic. So we just went in when they were discussing the arms procurement bill, like talking about buying weapons from the U.S. He puts on a V for Vendetta mask and just tear gases the whole room. And then
that's the one aspect I do enjoy about Taiwan democracy is it's great political theater. Like it's always entertainment. Lot more entertaining than watching what is that what is that U.S. cable show that shows all the
Daily
congressional. Show. Not Daily Show, man. I almost say ESPN, but that's a sports channel. No, there's another channel that shows all these like congressional hearing and stuff like that. But anyway, forget it. No one watches that anymore. No one watches TV anymore.
CNET. Wait, no, it's not CNET. Something. I know what you're talking about, but the name.
Yeah. But TV is such 20th century phenomenon. Young people don't watch TV anymore. Anyway,
Liao's genius. I realized. In the past, I was like, well, him running for elections and stuff, it's not like he really affected so much change. But what he did was he knew his views weren't popular and weren't going to be organically pushed. So he would strategically put himself in these positions where, as a legislator, for example, his views cannot be, not mentioned. They have to be broadcasted. So he just treated every opportunity he had as a stage to express his views. So as a legislator, he would go and and try to debate the people in the Ministry of Defense and just pull out a Barbie. It's like, okay, this is a Barbie. It costs this much money. But then you buy this. What do you need to do now? Oh, now you need to buy clothes for her. Now you need to buy Ken. Now you need to buy all of these things. And he's talking about all of the hidden costs. And then he's like, okay, well, the reason why we are getting weapons from America is because they want us to be their line of defense by using us. Their line of defense against the unfriendly world is all the way on this side of the Pacific as opposed to on the coast of California. He's like, we are their watchdogs, so why should we pay for weapons? What kind of a watchdog pays for its own treats, pays for its own kibbles, pays for its own snacks? And I grew up watching stuff like this, but back then a lot of people in Taiwan were like, oh, this guy's just a hater. He's just this mainlander guy. He doesn't love Taiwan. And I think now that that generation's gotten older, they're looking back at these clips that are becoming popular again. And they're saying, wow, this guy truly had our backs this whole time. He was saying stuff we didn't want to hear, but it was stuff that we needed to hear and stuff that would have put us in a better position because he truly loved Taiwan and loved the people on Taiwan, even as he sometimes said some not so nice things about the people on Taiwan. And you realize when Liao might have talked a lot of shit about people in Taiwan to Taiwanese people, but when he spoke to mainlanders, he would always explain, you think about it, for 50 years they were under Japanese rule and they were taught to, like taught this about China, and then for another few decades they were under KMT authoritarian rule and they were taught to hate communists. Added together, it's over a century of ideological conditioning. Can we expect all of this to be undone in just a few years? No, it takes time. He'll try to tell these things. So it's like at the end of the day, it's like I feel very few people on that caliber of recognition in Taiwan loved this island and its people as much as he did. And he was an anti he was very anti-US imperialist. And I think now finally after all of these years, it took the US showing its ass and also mainland China's military capabilities and economic strength and all of that to reach a certain level of parity with America for people in Taiwan to finally start understanding these things. And that's what we're seeing with Guan Zhang. See, Guan Zhang is not some sort of intellectual. He's not some sort of political commentator. He is just some okay. I'm
Guan
gonna put
Zhang
it
is a
crass.
gym boss, by the way. Guan Zhang is a
Yeah,
Chinese
yeah,
name
gym
for
boss.
gym boss. Oh, yeah.
He was born to a poor family, didn't receive that great of an education, so he joined the military for a few years, and then it's said that he was involved in organized crime before he to survive, before he opened up his chain of gyms. And then while he was doing that, he became a streamer, and I think he rose to fame because of his unfiltered attitude on his streams, talking about all sorts of issues, which eventually got into politics. Because I don't know if you know this or not, but in Taiwan nowadays, when it comes to election cycles, candidates will start looking at the famous streamers and YouTubers and all that and try to get their endorsement. So I think just him being in that position, it just kind of happened. And then he just saw a lot of corruption going on under the DPP too. I mean, like a few years ago, he got shot by these thugs, and then it was found out that those thugs had like connections to the DPP.
Wow. Besides the big influencer like gym boss, do you think there's actual opinion shift on the ground? Is there like a ground shift among the Taiwan populace toward the current political situation?
I think it's subtle. And the reason why I say that is even when like the DPP was at its peak popularity, like more recently, most people on the ground are just normal people trying to get on with their lives. They're not going to be talking about this stuff in public. And honestly, in Taiwan, on TV, you might see a lot of political debates or whatever. But in Taiwan society, it's typically not that polite to just randomly talk about politics with
Mm,
people,
yeah.
right? I mean, some people will talk about things and it is what it is. But for the most part, people are okay. Here's one thing. For a while, like in the past, my parents' generation, when I was a kid, and when I was a little kid, up until I'd say the 2010s, the vast majority of the people in Taiwan refer to the Chinese mainland as Dalu, which meant the mainland,
Yeah.
which means the
Yeah.
mainland. And here's the thing: if you call it Dalu, it's implying that the mainland is a part of your country. So it's not like Taiwan and China, but it's Taiwan and the mainland, right?
Yeah.
Then there was this shift. It became more mainstream, I'd say, in the 2010s, up until like recent years, for everybody to say like Zhongguo when they refer to the mainland. Zhongguo means China. So it's like they're China and we are Taiwan, instead of we are Taiwan and they're the mainland and we're both a part of China. So, and for a while, it was almost like it was you almost got shunned if you just kept on openly calling it like Dalu. But me being me, I just could not bring myself to call it like Zhongguo. because like to me it's like Zhongguo includes us too. It's not just them. So I would always call it Dalu. And for a happy medium would be like Zhongguo Dalu, the Chinese mainland.
Right.
But then now recently on the streets, just out there, like most people are starting to call it Dalu again. Which is, I think it's you have to look for these sorts of little signals. But also the thing is, once you leave like Taipei, because I think in most societies, the people who are more like, you know, liberal minded and all of that, they tend to be in the big cities.
Yeah.
Once you leave Taipei, most people are still like kind of more like traditionalists or whatever. You in Taipei, a lot of people are watching Netflix, but leave Taipei, most people are watching mainland shows. Just because of the cultural affinity that we have with the mainland, watching shows about like the Qing dynasty court drama between like the different
Wait, it's not blocked. Are those mainland apps like iQIYI, those service, are those not blocking in Taiwan? How do they access mainland shows?
They're not blocked over here. They're blocked on certain government networks, but they're not blocked for the average people. And even if they were blocked, a lot of them get re-uploaded to YouTube. And we also have those a lot of people, especially outside of Taipei, like more rural families. Oh, mine included, because I'm cheap. They get those little bootleg like Android boxes that like get like all this like TV channels from like all over the world, including like Taiwan and the Chinese mainland, so we don't pay for cable. And then there's also like streaming and all that. And yeah, there's a lot of mainland stuff. Like I could right now, if I wanted to, I could watch CCTV live from my living room because I got that bootleg box.
Nice.
And they're just kind of openly sold. And if you know where to look in Taiwan, yeah, it's not going to be openly advertised like we got bootleg boxes.
Is Douyin banned in Taiwan?
It's not banned, but the thing is, it's not on app stores outside of the Chinese mainland. So if you're using iOS, if you're using iPhone, you're not going to get it easily. And if you use Android, you have to sideload it. And then even then, if you sideload it, you still have to have a mainland Chinese phone number to make an account. Otherwise, you can only view. But I mean, I have all of that set up. I mean,
I got registered a Douyin account when there was a time when they were experimenting opening up because a lot of the Western people Americans were flocking to the red note. So I think that put pressure on Douyin trying to experiment. So I got into that small window. I tested with my Indonesian number and I got it though. Oh, nice.
That's how long it takes for
what is that? You got an ICBC card. So that's a Chinese bank card.
Yeah, you know how long it takes for somebody from Taiwan to get it when they're on the mainland? Huh?
3 hours? 3
hours?
Like,
it's like 30 minutes.
Holy shit. You know, it took my dad 3 hours because, you know, my dad is on a U.S. passport. And like my cousin in China is like, my cousin in China is like, oh, no problem. I know the bank branch manager, the ICBC bank branch manager. 3 hours tour.
Can I be perfectly honest?
Yeah, go ahead.
I already have a mainland bank account with China Construction Bank. I only got that one because the card's pretty. I was also curious because I got this the construction bank account in Beijing, big city, so they deal with a lot of people from Taiwan. I was in Ying-jeou and there's like nobody from Taiwan over there, and I was just wondering, okay, if I try to go to this like middle of nowhere bank that's like probably never dealt with a Taiwan compatriot before, how long will it take? 30 minutes.
Oh, so for people who don't know, Ying-jeou is right on the border with Korea. It's like right across the Yalu River.